Hey, what is up guys? DRC3 here, back with another My Hero Ultra Impact video, and today we're going to be doing a PvP tier list. We're going to be moving around some of these characters from last time, and we are also going to be placing the new fantasy characters as well as the new Zero. So before we place the new characters, we do have quite a few characters to move around. A lot of the higher placed characters that are currently there are going to be moving either up or down, and we are moving a few characters from the lower tiers upwards. So to start it off with the characters going down, we're going to start with Green Hawks. Green Hawks was really valuable in the speed meta, but we are kind of out of the speed meta. We're actually kind of like in a in-between phase where some people run defense team and some people run a speed team. It just depends on what characters they have DX'd, right? So you'll see actually a lot more different teams, I feel like, this season than you normally would. Now the upper ranks like Legend, everyone who's in Legend right now, they have more consistent teams, right? They'll probably be running more defense teams because those are the whales who were able to spend on the recent anniversary, get the best characters. There is no doubt in my mind that the new Uraraka and the new Kirishima are some of the best characters in the game, right? And so if you were able to get them DX'd, then they are probably your best characters. But if you don't have them DX'd, say you have Fantasy Ida DX, you might still run with a speed team. But anyways, in terms of speed, Hawks was very good. He was sub meta. He did all right because he gave your team evasion. He helped the Ida out, right? But now I would argue there's just not all speed teams. There's a few here and there, but it's actually more defense teams overall. So because of that, his value has kind of dropped a little bit. He's still really good, but we're going to move him down to A tier or competent because he's still competent. Given the right team, you're going against the right team, you're in the right situation, but he's just not always going to be useful. So you actually kind of almost have to have like multiple teams set up for this season. It's kind of weird. And then same thing for Gentle Criminal, really. He had good speed, he had the status element with his bind and stuff like that, but once again, speed is not everything this season, and so because of that, we're going to end up moving him down. To be honest with you, I don't remember why I put Mirko up here in S. I probably put her up here in S just because I was simping for her a little bit at the time. I don't think she even really has deserved to be an S as long as she has. She doesn't have a ton going for her other than survivability and damage, but she doesn't have bullseye, she doesn't have pierce, she doesn't have status elements, she doesn't have a lot going on for her. But because she does have the survivability that she has, and because she has the damage that she has, I am going to move her down, but I'm going to still keep her in A tier. And this A tier isn't in any particular order, so like realistically she'd probably be at the bottom of A tier. She's not like up at the top, but just keep that in mind that this is not in any particular order for these characters. They're all just kind of in the same general tier. Next, we are going to be moving Mount Lady down as well. These two get to stay here. They're actually still decent, and I'll explain them here in a second. But Mount Lady is going to go down because Mount Lady has Bullseye. Bullseye is great, especially when you're going against Ida or the yellow Ochako or Araka, Ocean Sun or Araka. Because of that Bullseye, Mount Lady is actually able to hit them no matter what. And that's still really, really good. But like I've just been saying, people aren't really running a speed defense team or a speed meta team anymore when you're going against them. Typically what's going to happen is you're going to end up going against a Kirishima first if they pull Kirishima, and then on their sub slot they might have like an Ida or something like that. Some people run Kirishima and Ida together, but yeah, that doesn't work out great for them. So we're gonna move Mount Lady down to right here for now. I do think there's a potential argument to put her into S tier or move her back up to S tier. Let me know what you guys think in the comments, but right now I'm happy putting her in A tier. The next character we're going to be moving down is Green Present Mike, kind of for a similar reason. He has Bullseye on his Plus Ultra, but he doesn't have Bullseye on his other two action skills, and because of that, we're going to move him down as well. Just Bullseye isn't as valuable as it was last season during the speed meta, so he's still a competent character, just not going to be as useful as he was. The Blue New Year's Deku, he's going to get moved down as well. I still kind of believe in him. I want him to be good, right? I got so many copies of him, and I really wanted him to be good. But it just kind of comes back to that same thing. He also has Bullseye. Bullseye is just not super useful. He does have good speed, so I would say he's actually technically better than these three right here that I moved down because of his speed. But other than that, yeah, just the same reason Bullseye is not as useful as it once was before the new Kirishima came out. Essentially, he kind of changed everything on his own. So yeah, he's a little bit nuts. Now, looking at the A tier, we're going to move a couple of characters down. Characters that don't really deserve to be in this tier anymore when you look at all these other characters. So all these other characters have something going for them, like they have barriers and good defense, they have status elements or defense up for your team, or they have good speed, they have evasion, they have cooldowns, they have whatever they have going on for them. Like all these characters have pretty much something going on for them, except for two characters here, and those two characters would be Black Whip Deku. Black Whip Deku, now he does have his 1+ Ultra. I think it's a bullseye off the top of my head. I know it has a medium chance to buy, and it might not actually be a bullseye, but he's just not great. He's not nearly as good as these other characters up here. So we're gonna move Black Whip Deku down to B tier. I do think he can still be good given the very right specific scenario situation, but definitely a very situational character. And then same thing with Blue Deku. He's just not as good as he should be, right? And so if we're gonna have this New Year's Deku down here, this Deku definitely can't be here with him, because this Deku is like eons better than the general pool Deku. So we're gonna move him down to B tier for situational as well. Don't get me wrong, they still have their uses, which is why they're not down in C tier where it's used for fun, but I don't think they're A tier. I don't think they're competent material if you're going to be actually trying to climb in Ultra Arena. The next characters we're going to be doing is the characters we're moving up. So those were all the characters we're going to move down. Hopefully you guys are okay with what I've done so far. Now for the characters to move up, we're going to be starting with S tier, and that is going to be Kaminari. Don't worry, Nejire and Aizawa are not moving up. Kaminari is slowly becoming much better in my mind than he originally was, right, for PvP, because of the fact that his plus ultra has both bullseye and pierce. Both of those things together make him invaluable for taking on teams that have both this Ida and a Kirishima on the team, because Kaminari is kind of like the catch-22 where he can beat both of them, right? And so having him on your team with a good defensive unit like the new Kirishima allows you to actually make really good use of this Kaminari, because now he has enough time to build up his plus ultra without getting killed, and he basically one-shots anyone that he attacks no matter what. So he is really, really good. If you run into a good defensive team with Kaminari on the team, it makes it really hard to get a perfect, and it's kind of annoying. So please don't go start running Kaminaris. It's already hard enough to climb. The next character we're going to be moving up is Blue All Might. Blue All Might is currently an A tier for competent, but because of the new addition of Kirishima, Fantasy Kirishima, All Might has now become, I would argue, a sub-meta character. You can actually run him. If you had him level 130, he might even be a meta character. I don't know how many people actually have him level 130, but he has bullseye on both his action skills, and he has bullseye on his plus ultra. Run him with an adventure awaits on him, and he is smacking people around. He just destroys the fantasy Kaminari. He is very, very, very good. And I did say I would talk about why I'm leaving Nejire and Aizawa here. The reason I'm leaving Nejire here, she's not, like, she's okay, she's still not super great, but she's okay, right, is because there's no other healer that does what she does down here that is as good as her. But then at the same time, Nejire is not nearly as good as the Ocean Sun Uraraka, the Green Juro, or even the new Fantasy Uraraka. They're all better, right? Because they just do different things. She gives evasion, she does status element nullification, she gives status element nullification, and then she gives extra defense and crit rate to your team. Nejire doesn't really do any of that, but she is, outside of that, the best healer behind those three in the game. So that's why we're going to leave her in S. And then for Aizawa is good for his buff removal, and then he is also good for his binds. His binds are still useful, and he still has pretty decent speed overall, like top-notch speed for a general pool character. So that's also why we're leaving Aizawa in the S tier. Our S tier has actually shrunk a lot. It's not nearly as big as it used to be. But that's just because these, I think, are the characters that are useful right now. And unfortunately, most of the double S tier characters, the meta characters, are limited or Impact Fest characters. But that's generally how the game goes, right? So it just is what it is. The next character we're going to be moving. And I know a lot of people kind of threw a fit the last time they saw my tier list, and they might still not be happy with where I put him, but I'm going to move him because I've taken a look at what he can do. I've seen him actually, I kind of clap a few people in Ultra Arena. I've seen a little bit more of him now, and that is going to be Purple Endeavor. We are going to move Purple Endeavor up to A tier. Once again, this is in no particular order, so I'm not saying he's at the bottom of A tier, but he can be very good because he does a crap ton of damage. He also has his Hellfire on his Plus Ultra if he's able to make it to that turn without dying. Once again, I will say the problem with this Endeavor is he can be very squishy and easy to kill compared to other characters, so that's kind of his downfall. But now having a new defensive unit like Kirishima, I think he's become a little bit more valuable, and I think you could run him in specific scenarios as a sub unit or things like that, so he could work out to some degree. So Purple Endeavor, I'm moving up to A tier. The next character I'm going to be moving up, and the final character I'm going to be moving up from the characters we already have placed, is going to be Red Shoto Todoroki. The reason I'm moving Red Todoroki up is because now people are oftentimes running this Jiro along with the Fantasy Uraraka, or this Ocean Sun Uraraka with Fantasy Uraraka, either way, right? But they're typically not running the Ocean Sun Uraraka and the Jiro together too much anymore, right? Because that was for the speed meta. And another thing about using those two characters together is she would nullify all status ailments turn one. She would give your characters the ability to nullify 2 status ailments. So basically status ailments were useless. But now if you're running one or the other, you're running her with Fantasy Uraraka or you're running her with Fantasy Uraraka, it does not matter anymore that status elements are nullified for 1 turn, because you'll be able to use status elements turn 2, 3, or 4 eventually, right? And so that gives this Red Todoroki a little bit more use because he's all about the frostbite. He gets frostbite, he gets his burns and stuff like that. He's really good for status elements, and if he lands frostbite, that interrupts skill chains, and interrupting skill chains is obviously invaluable when you're trying to stop the opponent from getting their Plus Ultra. So he has become a little bit more competent, I feel like, now with the shift in the healers that has happened. Finally, on to the new 3 characters that we still need to determine where to place them. We're going to be going in order of how they released. I know Fantasy Uraraka and Kirishima technically released at the same time. So starting with Fantasy Uraraka, like I was saying before, she has crit rate, she has increased defense, she has healing, and that's all for your team. That's for all allies. She is very, very good. She is obviously going to go up into meta along with her other fantasy counterparts, her limited counterparts. She is very, very good, and that should be to nobody's surprise. The next character we're going to do is Kirishima, and he is also going to go into double S tier because he is literally the best tank in game. Hopefully you guys all know that by now, and he is probably like the single biggest reason that this tier list has shifted around so much. Like, it's shifted around a ridiculous amount, right? We only have 3 characters in sub meta now because most of these characters that were up here just don't work against teams with the Kirishima comp now, so that's why it's shifted so much. And now the character that is probably the biggest question in all of your minds that recently released after the anniversary characters. Not a lot of people pulled for him, so not a lot of people know how good he is or how good he can be. Do I think he is S tier, double S tier, A tier, B tier, C tier, whatever, right? I have tested him out somewhat extensively, right? I've done a lot of mock battles against my own team, my defense team, and my defense team nowadays almost never gets perfected, like once in a great while. So my defense team is actually hard to beat. I've tested it against multiple variations of other people's teams, stuff like that. And overall, I think Zero is okay, but I think he suffers from the same problem that the other characters I mentioned before, like Mount Lady, Present Mike, and the New Year's Deku suffer from, and that is that his bullseye and his speed down are really good for going against the speed meta, right? But the speed meta is not as big of a thing anymore. If you find a team that is still a speed team, he'll work great, he'll work phenomenally, right? But most teams aren't speed teams. They're like a hybrid defense speed team or a defense team, and so because of that, we're going to place Zero into A tier because he can be used under certain circumstances. If you guys haven't watched my showcase for him, like, he definitely has his uses, but I wouldn't say he's necessarily meta or sub meta. He's just okay in my opinion, and I think he could be a little bit better. But that is my tier list, guys. This is where I'm moving all the characters to. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments, and if you guys enjoyed the video, please go down there, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. I am trying to get to 10,000 subscribers by the end of the year, and I need your guys' help, so please go down there, hit that, help me out, and as always, thank you guys for watching. Peace. This is the extended edition of the video. I apologize, guys. I don't know how I forgot Bakugo. I don't know how I forgot Midnight, and I completely spaced Best Jeanist as well. I guess I was just tired, but that's no excuse, so I apologize. Here we go with the extended edition, getting these characters placed because they deserve to be placed. So starting with Bakugo, the new Golden Chance Bakugo has the ability to stack damage. Now, I'm going to be honest, I haven't used him a lot because he is not fantastic, just because stacking damage is cool. It's a cool concept, it's a cool idea, but the way Ultra Arena works is he's probably going to be dead before he gets the chance to stack his damage, or there are just other characters who do more damage than him, like the Fantasy Kaminari or even Fantasy Bakugo, who are just better choices, right? So you're rarely going to see this guy run. However, he is a decent option for damage because the way Ultra Arena works is as turns pass, the damage goes up, and so with his stacked damage on top of the just inherent damage that comes with each passing turn in Ultra Arena, he could actually be quite strong. Now, his downside is, like, compared to Fantasy Kaminari, he doesn't have piercing damage, he doesn't have a bullseye, and so that's why he is going to end up in A tier. But there is an argument potentially to put him in S tier if you have him like DX level 130 and he just does a bunch of damage. I don't have him 130. I haven't seen anyone have him 130 because he was a general pool unit, and so I don't think he's an S tier really, unless someone knows otherwise with a DX level 130 Bakugo. So we're going to put him in A tier for right now. He is competent. There could be an argument for S tier. Then we are going to place Midnight. Midnight is an interesting character. She's like the UR version of Kami, kind of, because she has the ability to charm, but more than the ability to charm, she also has the ability to stun male opponents. A good amount of characters in PvP right now are male characters, with the exception of mainly Jiro and Uraraka. Jiro and Uraraka are going to be your main healers, and a lot of people are actually running the Jiro, Uraraka, and the Kirishima together, or some sort of combination of both Urarakas and a Kirishima. However you run it, they usually end up with two females on a team, so that kind of takes away some value from Midnight and her status elements. Additionally, the Uraraka and the Jiro, the Ocean Sun Uraraka, not the Fantasy Uraraka, and the Fantasy Jiro nullify status elements, so that kind of also takes away from Midnight. And so because her status elements can get nullified and stuff like that, we're going to put her in A tier. Once again, it is possible for her to land those status elements sometimes if people are running different combinations of those characters, but if they are running Ocean Sun, Uraraka, and Fantasy Jiro together, it's very hard to land your status elements. But if they're running Fantasy Uraraka and either Jiro or Ocean Sun Uraraka, then you can land some status elements because Fantasy Uraraka doesn't do anything with status elements. The last character we're going to place is Best Jeanist, the Climax Battle Best Jeanist. How could I forget about this guy? Because I was so excited when I tried him out in PvP. I did not expect him to be as good of a tank as he is. He is literally the best pro hero tank in the game. Now, is he a great tank compared to like Fantasy Kirishima? No, he's not, because he can only cover for 2 turns and he nullifies normal attacks and stuff like that. But we're going to put him in A tier just because he's not as good of a tank as Fantasy Kirishima. I would put him about on par, actually probably a little bit less than like Blue Kirishima. I still think Blue Kirishima is potentially a little bit better because of his barriers and stuff that he has going on for him. So I think Best Jeanist is just slightly worse than Blue Kirishima. Best Genus, Blue Kirishima, Red Kirishima, and Twice, all kind of in the same category, very close together in how good they are. And notice they're all in A tier, so that's why we're also putting Best Genus in A tier. And that is the end of the video for real this time. Hopefully I didn't miss any characters. And if you guys enjoyed the video, please go down there, hit that like button. Once again, hit that subscribe button, and thank you guys for watching. Peace.